All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something pretty profound, the incredible parallels between two of the most influential spiritual masters in all of history, Jesus and Krishna. You know, on the surface, they come from completely different worlds, right? But their core messages, well, they echo each other in some truly uncanny ways. So what happens when we actually place them side by side? Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's jump right to the heart of the matter. The whole idea here, which comes from the book Two Faces of God, really kicks off with this central puzzle. I mean, it's a question that has had people scratching their heads for centuries. And the question is a big one. How could these two figures, Jesus, born in Roman-occupied Judea, and Krishna, a prince in ancient India, how could they, from such wildly different cultures, make the same radical claim? And I mean radical. Because they didn't just teach about God, they often spoke as God.
And just look at this. Their own words really lay the whole problem out for us. On one side, you've got Jesus' famous proclamation from the Gospel of John. On the other, Krishna's declaration from the Bhagavad Gita. These are not subtle statements, right? These are heavy. They've got a weight to them that just forces you to dig a little deeper. So that leads to the really big question, doesn't it? Were these masters just operating from some kind of divine ego? Or were they pointing to a truth so deep, so profound, that it required this first-person divine voice? Well, the book suggests there's a key that unlocks a much more universal and honestly a much more beautiful meaning. So what is this key? Well, according to the source material, it all comes down to a concept called God consciousness. And really, getting a handle on this one idea, it's the absolute game changer for seeing the unity behind their words. So what exactly is God consciousness? Think of it like this. It's a state of being, a real lived experience where that little voice in your head, the individual ego, that sense of a separate me, it just dissolves. It melts away into the divine. It's this deep awareness that you, me, everything, we're all interconnected, all unified in this one eternal presence.
Okay, so with that idea in mind, when Jesus says, "I and the Father are one," he's not claiming he's personally better than anyone else. From this perspective, he's simply expressing that state of total union. He's speaking from a place of consciousness where the line between his individual self and God, well, it's just gone.
And you see the exact same principle at work with Krishna. When he speaks in the Bhagavad Gita, he isn't speaking as Krishna the man. He's speaking as the voice of the divine itself, totally aware of his all-encompassing nature. From that state of consciousness, he is the universe. Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. Once you start using God consciousness as your key, all of their teachings, which can seem so different on the surface, suddenly start to click into place. They align in some truly incredible ways. Let's check out a few of these core principles. I mean, just take a look at this. Selfless service? Check. Universal love? Check. The inner battle against the ego? Double check. The core message is identical. They're just using different language, from their different cultures to point to the very same spiritual truth. And this really reveals the big takeaway, doesn't it? Their lives weren't about handing down a bunch of rules. They were living, breathing demonstrations of God consciousness. They were literally showing a path, a universal path, that's available to every single one of us. All right, now let's get into what the book presents as its most powerful, most practical tool. It's a really simple technique, but it can completely change how you read the words of both Jesus and Krishna. Seriously. Okay, here's how it works. It's a simple little 3-step mental exercise. Step 1, you take one of those big, powerful I am statements. Step 2, you mentally swap out the word I or me with the word God. And then step 3, you watch what happens. You witness how the meaning completely shifts. Come on, let's give it a shot. So here's the original quote from Jesus. Now, for a lot of people, this has been read as a pretty exclusive claim, right? That loyalty to the person of Jesus is the one and only way. It can feel a little closed off, but now let's apply that little tool we just talked about. And wow, look at that. The second we make that substitution, the whole message just transforms. It's not about a single person anymore. It becomes this beautiful, universal metaphor for our connection to the divine, the source of all life. The meaning just opens up to absolutely everyone, no matter what their path is. So what this simple shift does is it reframes their entire way of teaching. Suddenly, their words stop sounding like these exclusive claims to divinity. Instead, they sound like an invitation, a guide for our own spiritual awakening.
It's an invitation for every single one of us to realize that exact same consciousness inside ourselves. And that brings us right to the ultimate message of this whole thing. If their teachings really are an invitation, well, what exactly are they inviting us to find? Well, here it is. The core message is that the focus has to shift away from the messenger and onto the message itself. That message is God consciousness. It tells us the journey isn't outward to some person or some strict set of rules, but inward. True spirituality goes beyond all that. The real goal is to wake up to that divine potential that they proved lives inside every one of us. To put it as simply as I can, the goal isn't to worship the person who figured this out. The goal is to realize that exact same truth inside your own self. Their lives, they become a blueprint, not something to just put on a pedestal. They're showing us what's truly possible for the human soul. And I want to leave you with a final thought on this. It's a really fascinating observation from the philosopher Alan Watts. He points out this huge cultural difference in how these kinds of claims are even perceived. In one culture, saying I am God can be seen as the ultimate blasphemy. But in another, it's seen as, well, the natural end of the spiritual path. It's just you finally realizing your true nature. And that really brings us to the final question I want to leave you with today. What if the ultimate spiritual truth isn't about choosing a side? Not about choosing Jesus or Krishna, or any single path? What if, just what if, the real journey, like their unified message seems to suggest, is about turning inward and recognizing that same divine spark they both embodied, a spark that's just waiting to be discovered inside of you?